Hi, everyone. I'm Sarah Clampitt. I'm from the Center for Survey Research at the Bloomington campus. So I worked on the presentation, but who also works in the center. I'm going to be talking about how we use REDCap. So what we were trying to imitate with REDCap is what we call software, which is a computer-assisted LLM interview. So the idea for this is that it hosts the survey instruments, but also the interviewers will log in and assign a case and they get a call script. And it will also log cases because you don't want two interviewers trying to call the same person at the same time. So we were trying to get REDCap to do something like this. So why did we not apply Patty software? So we were conducting one large phone project. And we just don't do enough of these projects anymore to justify us spending money on CADI software. And because we no longer have an in-person phone, interviewers are located all over the country. So we needed something that was web-based. And also this survey that we were doing conducts information on health data. So we needed a super secure system. And we also use REDCap for other things. So we thought, why not just use the knowledge we have to try and make this. So a little overview of all the instruments. There are 7 different instruments that we set up all in one project. So I'm going to go over all of these more in depth in the next slides, but this is just what you're going to be seeing. So first we have the setup page. And this is where all the sample information is stored about the respondent. It's also where all the last instances of the variables are going to be stored because we use a lot of repeating forms. I'll get more into repeating forms later. And it's also where the current contact information lives. Because while we're calling these people, we might get a new phone number that we have to call. So we use this form to update it so they're constantly calling the new number. So the top image where you just see submit is what the interviewers see. So they're using this project in survey form. And since the whole project is a survey, all the instruments have to be a survey, especially the first one. So we did everything from them. All they have to do is hit submit. So then the bottom image is just a picture of what it looks like from the back end. And then I wanted to just show a couple of things. So they can update the phone number in 2 different places. So we have a lot of if statements in a cal text field so that it's constantly getting the last phone number. And then the one under dispo code last is getting the last disposition of the survey. That's a more simple case. And then if it's the first time we're calling it, we give it a 3.11. These are just survey things. And then we only call people a certain number of times. We don't want to overwhelm them. So under total calls is all of our if statements to just add it up to see how many times. Okay, so like I said, we have to lock these cases down. So we don't want people calling the same case. So we created this case taken warning page. And what it does is there is no submit button. So if an interviewer opens a case and another interviewer is already in, they will see this warning. That's just saying someone else has this case, get out of it. And they can't go anywhere. All they would do is X out, refresh the report, and move on from there. And then at the bottom, I'm showing you where in the project setup that you can hide the submit button for that specific instrument. Now, case open. So if they actually did it correctly and they opened up a case that they're supposed to be working and no one else is in, they will be here. Now, one of the disadvantages of us using survey mode is we can't use the @username action tag. So they have to pick their name from this dropdown just so we know who's working. This is also where the case taken logic is set up, and I'll go more into that later. The front end, this is where they will actually get the call script. So they say, this is where they get a little background information about the case, the current phone number they're dialing, and then they progress through and they'll get a call script that includes their name through a bunch of fill-in logic. The survey, this is the most basic. This is where they actually get to the consent and the survey questions and start getting the interview and start getting the respondent to actually answer the question. And then the last page is the contact. So for every single call that's made, we need a dispo assigned. This is how we keep track of what part of the process this case is in. So it could be that they called and got an answering machine. The person actually completed the survey or things like that. So we need this filled out every time. We have logic in place that makes it so they see this form no matter. This is also where they can update contact information. And if you're a supervisor, because another thing we do in these pages is assign a role. So if I was to go in there, I have supervisor permissions, and then I'm able to finalize cases so they close out and can no longer. And then super contact page. So one problem with this is since we are locking cases down, if I was to open a case and it goes to taken and no one else can go in there, but I don't actually exit out of the case correctly, the case will be taken forever and it will never get called again, which is not what we need. So the supervisors actually go in and can untake the case. And so the top image where it just says submit is all they're seeing. They just open this link, hit submit. But on the back end, what it is doing is assigning them what I'm calling supervisor time. And since the supervisor time is going to be greater than the time the interviewer took the case, it will override it. Okay, so that was just a very broad overview. So now I'll go way more specific into what's happening behind the scenes. So things I'm going to go over. Why we use survey mode, what the repeating instruments are and how they helped us. For this specific case, form display logic, how we locked the cases, stop actions, which is how we dealt with break calls, the day of the week calculation, different reports we have, and okay, so survey mode. This is the first year we did it this way, and we got a lot of great feedback on it. So it gave the interviewers a much cleaner view. There's way less buttons for them to hit, and they're only able to do what we want them to do. It also allowed them to leave less notes. So if you're in what I call the form portion of REDCap, you can leave a note for every single question. And what was happening is the interviewers left thousands of notes last year, and it was stuff like, this person refused to answer this question, but they were already coding as a refusal, so we had to just read through thousands of notes to see what was important. And now they're only allowed to leave a note on the back end. So we're actually getting like very rich information, but in one place. So it's much easier for us to look at. We also had less problems with data saving because in the form mode, they have to remember to hit save at the bottom, or like that warning pops up, but they would constantly hit, they would sometimes hit the wrong button. So now with this, since we broke it up over multiple pages, we're getting it saved much more frequently than we were before. A disadvantage that I talked about earlier is we can't use the @username action tag. So we found a way around that, but just creates one more thing that they have to do. For supervisors, who are people that are watching over and managing the interviewers while they're making these calls, we allow them to do either form or survey mode. Just depends on what they're comfortable with. So you all know REDCap, but I just wanted to show this. So before the interviewers were seeing the form mode and they were clicking any button they could see sometimes. And now we show them survey mode and it's very clear what they're supposed to do next. Repeating instruments. So with these 9 instruments, we needed some of them to be repeating and some of them to be static. Because we don't want one person to take the survey portion of this multiple times. We just want it once and then not get any more information from them. So the case open, the front end, the contact, and the super contact, which is where we're getting who's opening the case, what time it is, information like that. Those are all repeating. And they can repeat as many times as you need. The survey and the setup page are not repeating. So disadvantages of this, much harder to code. It also made our project expand exponentially very quickly. There are about 3,000 people in the survey, and each of them has sometimes upwards of 10 repeating forms. So our reports were, towards the end of the project, loading pretty slowly. We didn't have a problem with the speed of the instrument, just the speed of. Okay, form display logic. So I have this little diagram to show what was happening. So all the instruments auto-advanced to the next one. But you could get different branches based on how you interacted with it. So like I said, if that case taken variable was to taken, you would get the warning page and you could not progress farther from there. However, if it was not taken and you did it correctly, you went to the case open and then to the front end pretty quickly. From the front end, you had to, as they're talking to the respondent on the phone, they'll see if the respondent is ready to start the interview or not. And if they're ready, there's a button they hit and they go straight to the actual survey. Well, they'll get consent and ask the survey questions, and then from there go to the contact form. And that's where they'll assign the dispo. If the person's not ready and it's like, hey, call me back tomorrow at 3 p.m., they'll go from the front end straight to the contact form where they can set that as a callback. And that will go on the report for the interviewer the next day to call back. So this was a way to stop collisions from happening and to make it so we always have the contact form filled out. And this is just a more in-depth version of how we did it. So we used form display logic, and even though it's called form display logic, it works even in survey mode. So the first condition is just how we got it to go from the front end to the survey if they were ready. The second condition takes you to that warning page, it is taken, and the third one takes you from case open to the front end. Locking cases. This one was a fun one to figure out. So what we do is in the case open, when they're telling us, when the interviewer is telling us who they are, as soon as they hit submit on that, we now know who they are. So in the bottom, you see the logic where it's saying, if that date is greater than the survey time, which is it's going to open up a new repeating instrument of the survey, which is automatically going to be later than that. It's going to go to taken. All right, it's a little abstract just talking about it, but that's the idea. And then this is also where the supervisor's time will override it if they have to go back and stop actions or break-offs. This is a cool REDCap feature. So part of surveys is you could be interviewing someone and they have to stop for whatever reason. So all the questions for the interviewers are required because we don't want an interviewer to just skip over things. So we have to have a way for the interviewer to be able to stop the interview without having all the errors pop up because they're not filling out required questions. So the top image is what it looks like on every page of the survey. So the blue text our interviewers know just means it's an instruction for them and they shouldn't be reading it out loud. And they will hit break off if they need to end the interview. And then this pops up the second image, which is just asking them if they're sure they want to end the survey. And if they hit end survey, it takes them to that contact page. So we still get the disposition and information that we need for the case, but they don't have to continue with the interview and they can come back to it later. So one thing that we had to do is know what day of the week it is. So in order to call people, we want to call them so many times on a weekday and a number of times on a weekend. But we had to know what day it is. And this was before the mod function was made available. So the mod function is going to make this a lot easier. But this was before that. So the idea is you choose a reference date, and I have an example over here. So I just chose September 1st, and you have to know what day of the week that is. So that's Friday. You have to figure out the number of days between the current date and that reference date. So let's say we want to know what day of the week September 11th is. There's 10 days between the 11th and 1st. You're going to divide that by 7 because there are 7 days in a week, and you get 1.42 thousand. And now you're going to have to round that to the 10th digit to get 1.4 and round it down because we just want the decimal. We don't want the whole number in front. So then we get 0.4. And then you have to look over at this reference table I have, and you see that 0.4 means that you are 3 days away from your start date. So 3 days away from Friday is Monday. So now with the new mod function, which I am so excited about, this is going to be a lot easier. I just haven't gone around to implementing it yet. Now what you're going to do is do the mod of that difference from step 2 and the number 7 for still 7 days in the week. And whatever number you get is how many days away from the reference date you are. So in this instance, I would get 3, and that means I'm 3 days away. So highlight at the bottom is part of the report that we had where we used. So I wanted to know when Saturday and Sunday were. So 0.9 was Saturday in this instance. So if it was Saturday or Sunday, it pulled up, and if it wasn't, went to different. We have a lot of reports for this. And we utilize user groups a lot to give people certain access. So if you're an interviewer, you only see cases to call. And what would happen is you start your shift, you open up this report, and it would have all the cases that need to be called that day in order of priority. If you were a supervisor, you had access to all these other reports where you could see all cases, regardless of if we've already called them, if they've completed whatever. You can see the taken cases, which is how they're knowing which cases they need to go back to and overwrite possibly if it's been taken for hours. We can also see what callbacks we have scheduled for today to make sure that they have someone available to call them. And if we missed an appointment, if it just fell through the cracks, they can then have someone call them back pretty quick. So this is the cases to call report, which is what the interviewers are seeing. So we have the name, whether it's taken or not, so they know which cases to stay out of, the time it was called, and then for every single record ID, they have a survey link which we make in the setup page. So as soon as they click that link, they get the specific case for that person. And this is where they do everything. The only problem with this is they have to remember to refresh their report, which is why we had to work so hard to deal with collisions. Because if you don't refresh your report, you're not going to see when a case goes from not taken to taken. So we have a little reminder to them, and we were working with Andy to see if we could get it to auto refresh, but they were not a fan of it. It was auto refreshing too quickly. So we're trying to work on the timing for that one. And then I just wanted to go over a little bit of the query for this. This one is over 100 lines long, so it goes over a lot. And the reason it's so complicated is there's a lot of different priorities we're trying to keep track of in this report. So one thing that we've been utilizing a lot is comments, so that when we have to go and change stuff, because sometimes we'll start the call cap at 5 calls, but we'll realize that's not enough, so we'll up it. So this lets us know exactly what part of the report we're trying to change. So yeah, just giving some different images of the different logic we use. All right, automated notifications. So this is one, I think someone said this earlier, this is one of my favorite parts of REDCap is that it can notify you. So one of the questions in this survey is whether the interviewer has abuse concerns for the respondent. And if they think that the respondent is experiencing some form of abuse, we have to file an abuse. So we have set it up so that it will email me and a couple other people on our team who would be in charge of filing this report. And we don't want any confidential information to be in there. So the email at the bottom just says, this interviewer has abuse. Look at this case. And so if anyone was to get this, they know absolutely nothing. And then whoever is in charge of filing that report is going to go into the instrument, look at record 12. I have a report in there that tells them exactly what the abuse concerns are, and they can file it very easily. Okay. Next steps. This is where I'm hoping Andy will come in. So after this project happened, we sat down with all the supervisors and we're like, what did you like about this? What didn't you like? What can we improve on? And they gave us an entire wish list of things. Some of these, I'm honestly not sure if we can make happen, but if you have any ideas, I would love to hear them. So some of the things is we have one report where this whole survey is in English and another project where the whole survey is in Spanish. Why we didn't put them all in the same project? It slowed it down so much when we did that. So it made it so the supervisors have to be in 2 different REDCap projects at the same time. So they want a way to just look at everything at once and see what callbacks they have for Spanish and English. My idea for this is using the REDCap ETL so that I can get into SQL and make a report that way. If you have other ideas, let me know. They want the interviewers to not be able to schedule interviews during a certain time, so make it so they can't schedule an appointment at like 3 a.m. Not be able to figure that one out either. They also want to limit the number of appointments during a time. So saying you can only have 5 callbacks at 1 p.m. That's how many interviewers will have available. And this is a different one, which this one is the one that's still seen the most. They want to know if an interviewer X's out of the survey at any point during it without progressing through the whole thing. They want like a warning, being like, this person exited early. Don't know about that one either. And then the last thing is they want a lot more interviewer productivity notes, because I use dashboards for this in REDCap, but the dashboard can't divide, which makes it a little weird to give people things that aren't a percentage. So I would export the data and do it in R. So we're just gonna expand on that so we can get more. But yeah, that's it. So like I said, I'm from the Center for Survey Research. We can help out with surveys and you can hire us to work with you. These are a bunch of the services we offer. So if you have a project, we would absolutely love to hear about it and possibly collaborate on it, so you can reach out to us.